It's now time for the Grobstein and Schuster Express on 1252 Sports Chicago.
All aboard!
And now, here are your hosts, Les Grobstein and David Schuster.
And welcome into the latest edition of the Grobstein Schuster Express. I'm David Schuster, joined as always by my longtime friend and cohort, Mr. Les Grobstein. Of course, he's the overnight host on The Score, WSCR Radio. In just a little bit, we'll be joined by FatMike, Chicago Sports. He's the CEO of 1252 Sports Chicago. We apologize for starting just a little bit late with some technical difficulties, and we do greatly appreciate Andrew, who's back in the studio, for getting us up and going. And Les, I want to start right away with the Cubs game today. Why did they not play the Cubs game today?
They didn't want to. They didn't want to play. They're
That's
playing
exactly
like crap.
right.
They played like crap last night, and they didn't want to play today. That was no different than the White Sox canceling a game in 2008 when the Bulls were playing a playoff game that night. It was perfect weather. They called it off, said, well, our forecast said, give me a break. That was a bunch of BS. And this today was 100% bull.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of factors that went into it, but you're 100% correct when you say they just didn't want to play the game. Now, listen, I've been at the ballpark for rain delays that go on for hours and hours and hours, and yet they still try and get the game in. The Cubs, have lost 13 of their last 15 games, so they're obviously sliding in the wrong direction. After last night's game, meaning Saturday night, Wilson Contreras took off on his teammates, basically calling them a bunch of quitters. And so I just don't think they really wanted to deal with the media as much as not just play the game because they're going in the wrong direction. Now, they'll tell you that, there was a rain in the forecast. Guess what? It hardly rained at all in Chicago today.
That was a big bunch of crap. No matter what anybody says, it was garbage.
It just, and if you're a fan, and listen, I saw on some of the message boards, Les, there's some people that were in from out of town just for today's game. Can you imagine how pissed off those people are?
Well, not only that, the tickets from today's game are good for one of those doubleheader games, and people are mad that they're going to lose 2 innings. They're going to be good for a 7-inning game. Big frickin' deal. It sucks.
Yeah, but again, if they're from out of town, okay, and let's face it, the Cubs do get a lot of out-of-town people from Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, what have you, who are coming in just for today's game or we're here for the weekend. Listen, Cardinal fans also coming up from Missouri or downstate Illinois. And now all of a sudden you have to come back at, the third or fourth week in September? I mean, that's just crud. That's just treating your fans like bullshit.
There's going to be a bunch of people that are not going to show up that had tickets. They're going to ask for refunds, and they're not going to get it. And teams, they will fight them and say, well, sorry, we can't do it. That's a bunch of garbage.
Totally right. All right, let's talk about the Cubs in general. And in general, they stink right now.
No, they don't. They're worse than they stink.
Well, you're the one who always has the great descriptive words, so I'll allow you to give the adjectives here. But they've lost 13.
You mean they suck and they freebase?
Yeah, those are two of the words that you've used a lot. Listen, it was giving them kudos, saying, how the heck were they, doing this at that juncture? The bullpen was one of the best in baseball. They were getting enough contributions from enough people in a bad division overall to at least stay in first place. But then they roll off 11 straight losses. And while they were doing that, I think Milwaukee won 9 of 10 or something like that. So the Cubs.
Although Hader has given up 2 home runs in games, a lot of bullpens are having problems. And with Hader having difficult, and the Cardinals right now have a blah bull, but then you also talk about the Reds, one of the worst bullpens in baseball, and they look like world beaters against Milwaukee the last couple days. Go figure.
Someone just put up on the screen, there's a bad acid trip behind me. You're right. I have no idea what this picture is. It's not my picture, but whatever. You might be right. It is a bad acid trip. But anyway, the Cubs have dropped 13 of their last 15. They went from being up in their division to now 2 games under 500. They're in 4th place, unless probably the most important factor of that happening. And I'm not so sure the Cub brass or the ownership really cares about this. They might even be happy. They went from buyers to sellers. And when I say sellers, they're going to, give away a lot of their high-priced talent and save a lot of money. You know what I'm saying, don't you?
I want to see it it'll happen when I believe it. I've been saying over the last several weeks, one, them giving up any of these players, I'll believe it when I see it. Right now, and I've been saying, and we'll get into this later, Aaron Rodgers returning to Green Bay, going elsewhere, I'll believe it when I see it. He's pretty much hinted in the last day or so he'll be back in Green Bay, as we all knew. But back to the Cubs. This whole thing is a disaster. Way of play they played, and I do not blame David Ross for this. I hope he doesn't take the hit for it. I don't think he will.
No, he won't. I mean, I'm pretty confident in saying that, but I do believe that they're going to. It might not happen during the All-Star break. It will happen, I believe, before the end of the month, which is the trading deadline. Craig Kimbrell is the guy who obviously fetches you the most because, much like when the Cubs picked up Chapman, Randy G says hello, Randy. Much like when the Cubs got Chapman from the Yankees, and that was the final piece to get them over.
Everybody knew he was going back to the Yankees.
Well, okay, that's. I don't think Kimbrell's going to come back to the Cubs. By the way, that's a whole different.
Probably not.
Okay. Should they trade Kyle Hendricks, says Angelo? No, they should not trade. You got to have at least one pitcher who you can count on. So no, they already gave up their best pitcher last year. You're not going to give up your second best.
I don't think Hendricks is going anywhere. Just my opinion.
Right. But Kimbrell is going to get you a king's ransom. He's going to get, he is a coveted. Listen, right now he's the best closer in baseball. I don't think there's anybody better than him. He's a Hall of Fame player down the road. Obviously, he's back into the form that he was a few years ago. He's been outstanding, and he is going to fortify your minor league system. I also think Chris Bryant eventually will go. I'm not saying anything that a lot of other people in the industry are not saying. Also, Chris Bryant is going to fetch you a lot still. And listen, the Cubs don't want to deal with him and his agent ultimately down the road, which would be next year for a new contract. So those are the two guys. Javi Baez, I think they hang on to him less because I think they still need somebody for the fans to latch onto at Wrigley Field. Rizzo's not going.
Even though he's become a strikeout machine.
Yeah, but you know what? He still has about 20 home runs, give or take. And so he's still a productive player. And somebody just put up that Theo jumped ship at the right time, 100%, because Theo knew eventually this was going to be a necessity, and he passed the buck to Jed Boyer. So whoever put that up on the screen, you're right.
That was Randy G again.
Say again, Les?
That was Randy G again who put that up on the screen.
Okay, thank you, Randy. And Anthony Rizzo's not going anywhere because of his bad back. He's not going anywhere. No team is going to give up a lot for him. And then there's Wilson Contreras, and maybe the fact that he ripped into his team last night, I don't know, maybe he's on the trading block. I mean, he certainly can fetch you something as well, although they don't really have anybody at this juncture to take his place in the starting lineup. So I do believe, Les, that they're going to make some trades here.
Well, they've had catchers in the past make some bad comments that ticked off the front office. We know what ended up happening after they won the whole thing in 2007. He hit a big home run, and you know who I'm talking about, hit a big home run against the Dodgers, which it was against the Giants, I'm sorry, and they could have lost that game, and they could have lost that series.
Who are we talking about? Because I'm not following what you're saying.
Who was the catcher who was the third string? He was really the second stringer.
Oh, you're talking about, oh, God, I'm terrible. Oh, geez. I'm spacing out. Somebody will put it up on the screen. I'm spacing out right now.
Yes, they will.
Okay. Anyway, I do think the Cubs are going to be sellers here, and I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. All right, the other side of town, you know what? The White Sox ended up winning today's game, although it got a little hairy. Talking about relievers giving up home runs, Liam Hendricks had a 4-2 lead in the ninth inning, and he gave up a 2-run homer. Then ultimately the White Sox won it on an Adam Engel 3-run homer in the 10th inning. Unless, a lot of people will say, well, gee, the White Sox are beating up on bad teams. Well, you're supposed to beat up on the bad teams.
The Orioles stink, and we know that.
Yeah, the Orioles stink, and they've beaten up on their own division. And yes, they've had some problems against some of the better teams. The Astros and the Yankees, even though the Yankees are barely over 500, they have had some problems against the better teams. However, They do have the best record in the American League right now. They're 19 games over 500, and they'll get even better in the second half and down the stretch. Les, Eloy Jimenez is already on track to come back in about a month, maybe less.
Winston-Salem right now to play pretty soon.
Yes, and he hit a home run. I think it was in his first at bat in last night's game, meaning Saturday. Eventually they'll get Luis Robert back as well. Grandal, will probably come back in about 6 weeks. And I think Rick Hahn is going to pick up at least another guy for his bullpen, Les, and I think he's going to get a left-handed bat. So, the White Sox, you could say whatever you want about Tony La Russa over the last whatever, but right now he's a Manager of the Year candidate.
You're the third largest market. Why are the Cubs running like Cubs are a small market team? From Todd Schuster. Todd, you're right. They are acting like a kind of a mid-market team, really not a small market team.
Well, they're acting like a team that has an owner or ownership that is more interested in even making more money or saving their money than they are in trying to win. Listen, they did win the World Championship. You can't take that away from them. And they hung on to some of those players too long, and Theo Epstein didn't make the moves that maybe he should have a year or two ago, maybe. But right now, it sure looks like Jed Hoyer has got an edict, and that is to trim the roster, trim the payroll, and I think that's exactly what he's going to do.
By the way, Cubs have picked up a short star. Actually, they picked up a left-handed pitcher from K-State, Jordan Wicks, with their first-round pick. The White Sox have gotten Colson Montgomery, and he is a shortstop and a left-handed hitter out of Minnesota.
Yeah, and you can't read too much of it. Like somebody might say, "Oh, they got a shortstop." I mean, what about Tim Anderson? You don't worry about a kid who's probably like 18 or 19 years old being drafted. And by the way, a lot of teams draft these players and they cultivate them, and then they use them as trade bait down the road. So whatever's being drafted right now by the Cubs or White Sox, these are players that if they even get to the big leagues, you're not, seeing them for 3 or 4 years. Tim Anderson was in the minors less for 4 years before he came to the major leagues.
And he's been named to the All-Star team. Good for him. He gets to play in Coors Field.
Deservedly so. He's got his average back over 300. And as somebody pointed out, I don't know if it was on TV or what. Here's Scott Bram saying, I hate to say it, but you are correct about La Russa. I don't like him, but he wins. Well, yeah, right now, a manager, you can only look at a manager by his record. Yeah, he made some bungling moves earlier in the season, but he's got, again, the best record in the American League, and they're 19 games over 500. So you got to give him credit. One thing I do like about the White Sox, I'm getting off the beaten path from what I was starting to talk about, Les, you can feel there's a really good chemistry and camaraderie in that clubhouse.
Kind of reminds you of 83, doesn't it?
It does. It actually does.
They won 99 games. They won the division by 19 and a half games, and then a very good Oriole pitching staff shut them down.
Yeah. I'm going over just a couple things because unfortunately, whereas we used to be going into the clubhouses all the time because of COVID, we're still not having any entry into the clubhouse. So we're not seeing everything with our own eyes, but every now and then there's some video clips that come out. Like when Tim Anderson was named to the American League All-Star team as an addition, they showed the video and you could tell the camaraderie in the clubhouse as they all came up and congratulated him. And I don't know if you saw this at all, Les, but Jose Abreu, who's got a sense of humor that you really don't see very often, he was screwing around with one of the people in the dugout. I'm not sure who it was. It might have been an equipment manager or something. And I think what he was doing, he was putting some like suntan lotion or something on his head and playing with them. I don't know. Just little things like that told me that there's a really good chemistry and camaraderie. Of course, winning helps more than anything else, obviously. And La Russa's got to get a lot of credit for that, Les, because he's the one who's in charge of the ship.
He is, and I didn't go way out to defend him, but I told people to chill out when he was named manager. They said this was going to be a disaster. It isn't a disaster, and this division's over. They can't lose this division unless they lose it themselves. Now, the other thing, too, about those videos coming out of the clubhouses and the Zooms, this is just my own opinion. They can take that to stick it up their rear end where the sun don't shine and crazy glue it in place. Those things don't mean nothing. what they're doing is they've wanted for a long time to be able to do this, and they used COVID as an excuse.
Oh, you're talking about us not being in the clubhouse.
MLB and the clubs.
Yeah, well, it'll be really interesting. I don't think
They're
they'll
going to try and keep it this way. They're not going to open it back up regularly if they can have their own way, unless they're ordered to by the commissioner. And with Rob Manfred, anything that makes any sense is not going to happen anyway, because he's a dildo.
Les, it's the first time I've ever heard you use the word dildo. I like it, actually.
I've used it before, just not in front of you.
Okay, I'm not going to ask who you've used it in front of then. But anyway, no, I'm not disagreeing with you, Les. I think if they had their druthers, I think they would love to have the media out of clubhouses, locker rooms, all the sports.
Yes, they would, and they are doing it.
Well, but it'll still be interesting, and you know the power of the Major League, or well, I should say the Baseball Writers
Association. Baseball Players Association and the MLB Writers Association.
Yeah, and it'll be some interesting conversations. Now, the average fan probably doesn't care at all about that.
They don't,
but they should actually, because when the media has access to the players, that means that the fans have more access to the players because we're one-on-one with the different players, and there's just more stories that get out, more media attention, yada, yada, yada. So again, it'll be really interesting to see how that goes down the road. What's Randy asking now? How many hitting coaches can the Cubs go through? Bottom line, the Cubs aren't very good. Yeah, bottom line, Randy, is you're absolutely correct about that. Les, I don't know if you saw this, and we both love Paul Sullivan. And it was, I think, in yesterday's, meaning Saturday's paper, he threw out, and listen, he accomplished his goal because we're talking about it right now. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
Okay, he wrote in his column, I think it was Saturday's paper, that the Cubs and the White Sox, which they don't do very often, but they should have a trade with each other. And he says, because Craig Kimbrell's going to get traded to somebody, he says that the Cubs should trade Kimbrell to the White Sox.
They won't.
I know that because they have their own closer right now. But his rationale was that both Kimbrell and Hendricks, Liam Hendricks, both want to just win a World Series, and that one of the two of them would, say, okay, I'll be the setup guy for the other guy. And then that bullpen obviously becomes that much better. But I don't think the White Sox are going to give up a king's ransom for Kimbrell and then probably trade him at the end of the season. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
That's a real reason why that's not going to happen. Now, I know there's a lot of people in the Cub organization that have not been in Chicago about they're not really that much about the Cubs White Sox rivalry. When Epstein was here, they didn't, and I don't think that Hoyer has anything to do with it. And I don't really think Ricketts cares about it. He supposedly became a Cub fan and sitting out in the bleachers and stuff. Yeah, I don't buy that for a second. As far as the White Sox, they have lost trades with the Cubs. They have won trades with the Cubs. This last trade that they made, they won big time. The Sox did. The Cubs won the Sammy Sosa deal. And a lot of Sox fans will never admit that because he became a star with the hated crosstown Cubs, and they'll never admit that he became but he cheated. He did. Hey, there were others. The White Sox made a trade for Albert Bell. Was he a cheater too?
He might have been. Remember the whole bat thing when he was with Cleveland, don't you?
Yeah, they hid the bat in the ceiling at it was then called New Comiskey Park, and we know what happened there. And no Sox fan would talk about the fact that Albert Joey Bell was a cheater too. And yet Jerry Reinsdorf went out on a limb, and the guy who wanted him was Frank Thomas, so he went out and got him.
Actually, they didn't hide the bat in the ceiling. They had the bat in another room. And one of the Cleveland people, and I can't remember who it was. Yes, Albert corked Bat Bell, but Sammy did the same thing, and Sammy was caught, by the way.
But he admitted he did it. Albert Bell was he wouldn't admit it.
Right. One of the Cleveland people, whether it was a player or I just don't remember, Les. I'm not good at that. Somebody climbed up through the ceiling to get, go from one room to the other. It was like a Three Stooges episode. And then they got caught doing it to try and get into the equipment room where Bell had that bat before they could confiscate it.
Exactly right. And eventually, with regard to Sosa, he immediately apologized to Bud Selig and all the rest of it, but he never admitted that he was doing it for any other reason than he said, well, I was doing it for batting practice to put on a show for the fans. That was a bunch of crap too. He was doing it. He had just had toe surgery and he was striking out almost every time at bat. And he was trying to cover that up and hope that he could hit the ball. That's why he corked the bat.
100%. And hey, it's not even the cynic in me. It's just a person who's looking at it from an obvious standpoint. He knew he had a corked bat. He was trying it out, or he was continuing to use it in batting practice, even though he said he pulled the wrong one out of the batting.
Bullshit.
Yeah, total bullshit. And then if you remember, Les, when they went to go confiscate it, one of the coaches or one of the people got rid of everything. They wouldn't let the MLB people into the clubhouse back then. Do you remember that?
Yep, sure do.
So, I mean, yeah, Sammy got
people today are even worse than they were back then. If something like that happened today, it would even be a more ridiculous situation. But, now you got a situation where the umpires are, by the way, the umpiring in a couple of these games have been abusively bad. That game between the Brewers and the Reds the other night, where you had a lot of people thrown out of the game. The reason you had people thrown out of the game, even Joey Votto on the winning Reds, he got kicked out after, Craig Counsell got kicked out and all the rest of it. It was an absolute abortion.
I want to remind everybody that we have our Walk Down Memory Lane segment that's still to come. We have Stump the Grobber All-Star Edition, Les. So put on your All-Star thinking hat when we get to the Stump the Grobber segment. We also got FatMike Chicago Sports. He's coming up in just a little bit. He'll be in front of his computer in just a couple of minutes. I want to talk about a couple of other things, Les. Let's talk about the USA basketball team, the men's basketball team losing to Nigeria.
Talking about abortions.
I had to go back into my memory. Actually, I was saw it online, so it brought back my memory when the Dream Team. And this is not, you can't call the U.S. teams Dream Teams anymore because they're just not. But
the Dream Team 1 played a game. It was an exhibition against a bunch of other so-called Dream Team select, and they lost. Big deal. Yeah,
well, that's at least playing against other Americans back in the day. But that Dream Team beat Nigeria back in 1992. They said by 83 points.
Yes, Dream Team 1 beat Cuba by 79 points in the first game of the Tournament of the Americas in Portland, a game I happened to be at and covered.
Yeah, I think they also beat Angola by 60 or 70 points also. But the point being is, I guess they can't roll the ball out anymore. I mean, there are good players in all the other teams, but still, even in an exhibition game, losing to Nigeria, how embarrassing is that?
Dream Team 1 actually had a couple of players that played hurt. John Stockton played hurt, Larry Bird played hurt, and they still were beating the crap out of her. That team was, and then Dream Team 2, which played not in the Olympics, but they played in the next round, the next 2 years later. They said, we could beat them. No, you couldn't. They sucked. I mean, Pippen was one of the few players that was on Dream Team 1 and Dream Team 2. Dream Team 2, if they would have played Dream Team 1, they would have got their asses kicked.
Yeah. All right, listen, you mentioned the Olympics. What are your thoughts on the Olympics upcoming? Do you think it still should be held, Les? There's not going to be any fans. Obviously, the whole COVID situation over in Tokyo is pretty bad. Are you of the mindset that maybe they should have just called the damn thing off?
There is another version of the, we're going to all have to have, those of us that had our shots, which we did, we're going to have to get a follow-up shot that's going to happen in the fall because we're not done yet. And another thing has broken out in the Far East, and it's actually, it's hit this area as well, too. And people that have not gotten their shots in the past are going to be in big trouble down the road here. And I know there are some people, the former president said, I'm never doing it. Well, he did do it. I think he kind of got forced, but he wasn't going to do it. And none of his supporters would do it either.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that, but let me go back to my original premise with the question. Do you think the Olympics should be held without any fans in attendance or when the pandemic
is a TV show? It's a TV show and nothing more. It is going to be a television show. The money that has been spent by NBC and people for that, yeah, it's going to be held for that reason. Should it be held? Probably not. But it's going to be anyway, and it's because of Money. You know that.
Yeah, you're right about that, of course. What is going to be really interesting, I mean, it is going to be a financial bath for, the host country, Japan, because they've spent a ton of money, and obviously they were looking to get a lot of the money back in tickets and merchandise revenue. And the IOC, and let's face it, neither one of us has any sympathy for the IOC.
They're crooks. They're criminals. Them, FIFA, the NCAA, they're all criminals.
Who are the IOC? It was Avery Brundage, and who was the other guy who was there for a long time?
He was the guy, basically.
Yeah, he was one, but there was another one too. I can't remember who it was, but the Olympics, and especially because it's going to be in Japan, and I think that's from Chicago at least. I think that's a 14-hour difference. So I don't know if this stuff is going to be live or what, or it's mostly going to be tape delay. I'm not really sure how that's going to work.
They'll put it on live. The tape delay days are over. I doubt that they'll put them on tape delay.
Speaking of tape delays, what was the year when Magic was a rookie and they beat Philadelphia in the finals, and it was tape
79-80.
Was that 79-80? That was his rookie season?
Yep, that was on tape delay. Magic going up against Philly, and then the first time it was Magic Bert. It was not until the second time that they went head-to-head they finally did it live, because the TV networks would not cancel out their primetime shows. The only reason they started carrying it live was when they moved it up. Remember, the NBA Finals used to be in May. When those were in May, when they finally moved it up so they were all well into June, and don't count last year or this year, that doesn't count. But the bottom line is they changed it, and that was when the TV networks agreed to carry them live. The NBA had to move their schedule. Until they did that, it wasn't going to happen.
Okay, let's continue on here. We talked about the U.S. basketball team. Zach LaVine is on the U.S. basketball team.
Nice job missing those 2 free throws at the end there.
Yeah, he's supposed to bring back some good vibes for the Bulls. But in general, let's forget that game was even played last night or what he did in it. What do you think the positives?
I'm not going to forget it. They stunk.
Okay, well, what do you think? What do you think are the positives of Zach LaVine being on this team and helping his career going forward?
I don't think it's a negative. I don't think it's a positive. I don't think it has anything to do with anything. Is he a difference maker that's going to make the Bulls a champion? I think he's a great guy. I like the guy. Every time I've talked to him, I've always found him to be a gentleman. I think he wants to win. He's not going to make them a winner. And I know they made a big trade about maybe 2/3 through the season, and they still couldn't even make the playoffs. They're not ready yet. They're still going to have to do a couple of things, and they didn't do anything big in the lottery that they're just not really ready yet. It's going to take probably another 2 years before they're ready to really even advance to the Final Four.
And I'm sure you probably just saw on the screen what our good friend Alan Bratcher just put up there. What about the positives of Zach LaVine being around other star players and hopefully setting up some kind of conversations for maybe bringing some other star players to the Bulls somewhere down the road?
I think that would be great. I don't buy it. You had people here that, even though Derrick Rose said he wouldn't go out there and recruit or anything like that, he was around people at the All-Star game. He could have recruited people. No, that's if people have their mind made up, they're not coming here. They're not coming here.
And speaking of Derrick Rose, I saw online yesterday. I'm jumping all over the place here. I saw online yesterday they had the top 100, I believe, or maybe it was top 50 high school basketball teams of all time. And his Simeon team, and let's face it, he won a couple of titles. His Simeon team was ranked, I do believe, like number 12 or 15 of all-time teams. So I was looking for the Thornridge team with Quinn Buckner. Was not the number 1 team, but it was, I think, in the top 5, if I'm not mistaken. What were your recollections of that Thornridge team?
They almost lost to Oklahoma the first year. They beat them by 2 points. Jim Bosinski, and he was terrific in that game. But Bosinski ended up going to DePaul, if you remember, and he was a good college player, never really played in the pro. But they barely beat them by 2 points. The next year, they beat the crap out of everybody they played. The only team that gave them somewhat of a game was St. Patrick's, and they played them every year. And somehow, someway, Max Kurland, the former coach, the late coach at St. Pat's, he was a terrific coach. And somehow he knew how to do certain things, and they still weren't going to win.
What wasn't C.J. Kupek also from Oaklawn?
He was the guy that missed the layup at the end that could have tied the game and forced overtime. He played with the Lakers.
All right, I understand that FatMike Chicago is now in front of his computer, so let's bring in the CEO of 1252 Sports Chicago. That is FatMike Chicago Sports. He's got his own show here, of course, on the network each and every Wednesday night. And Andrew, if you're back in the studio and you're able to bring him in, just let us know when he's there and we'll bring him in. In the meantime, Les, real quickly before we get him in, Allen Robinson still does not have a contract with the Bears. What are your thoughts on that?
I think he's going to play with the deal that he got. I mean, when he was franchised, that's what he's going to have to play with. He's going to have to play with the franchise deal. By the way, speaking of the Bears, there are some other people that are bidding for that territory. The Bears are not going to get Arlington Park. As it was said so many times, not so fast.
No, I agree with that. Listen, that's a valuable piece of property, and I'm sure there are some major conglomerations or entities, whatever you want to call them, that are going to spend a lot of money who will, and listen, I'm sure
one of which wants to keep the track going.
Yeah, I saw that as well. So, listen, the bottom line is always the bottom line. Whoever puts up the most money and it makes most sense to the people who are writing that, selling it rather, they'll go with the highest bid. But, it's interesting, Les, because I saw another story. It's a rumor, of course, that if the Bears were to down the road, this is all down the road, by the way, if the Bears were to move to Arlington Heights, that maybe a second team would come into Chicago and play at Soldier Field.
No.
Why do you say that?
I don't buy it. The NFL doesn't want a second team here.
Why?
One.
They have two.
They already have. They didn't want the second team in LA, and they didn't want the Raiders to move there, and they did because they couldn't stop them. And the Jets have been in New York for a long time, and they were grandfathered in because they're an AFL team. The bottom line is now the Bay Area only has one team, the 49ers. They will never have a second team in that area.
But LA still does have two teams because the Chargers moved up in there.
They didn't want that to happen either because the owner of the Chargers, he moved up. He said, "Stop me." Because of Al Davis, the late Al Davis, forcing it down the NFL's throats. That's why teams like the Clippers move from San Diego to LA and stuff like that. Speaking of Mike, I think we have Mike with us now.
There he is. Mike, why don't we pick up? Why don't we pick up on the subject we're talking about? Can you see a second team coming to Chicago, underlined only if the Bears were to move to Arlington Heights somewhere down the road?
For NFL, absolutely no way at all whatsoever. There's not going to be an NFL team other than the Chicago Bears in Illinois, plain and simple. The city's too small. It's too small to hold just one to hold two teams.
It's the third largest city in the
Chicago Bears, and that's it. Yeah, listen, it's the Chicago Bears, though. It's the Chicago Bears, and we all know how the Chicago Bears are. Plain and simple. Okay. It's the Chicago Bears.
Okay, you're only talking as a biased Bears fan now. You're not talking as being realistic when it comes to money.
What are you going to bring here? The Chicago Argonauts, the Chicago Vikings, Chicago what? What are you going to bring here? What are you going to bring here?
I don't know.
It's a Bears town, Dave. It's a Bears town, plain and simple. It's plain and simple. Whether they go to Arlington Heights, whether they stay in Chicago, it's going to be a Chicago Bears town. That's the way it is. It doesn't matter where they're at. It doesn't matter where they are. They are going to be and forever be the Chicago Bears. Plain and simple. All these people saying, "Oh, you got to change the name because they're moving to Arlington Heights."
That's bullshit.
I'm going to try and keep it PG.
No. Don't keep it PG for starters, because that's ridiculous.
All right. Well, get the fuck out of here then. There's no way. If they move to Arlington Heights, it doesn't matter. They're still the fucking Chicago Bears. Plain and simple.
No.
The Chicago Bears.
You are missing the point, my friend. We're not talking about the Bears losing their identity in Chicago. We're talking about a second entity coming into the area from
not going to happen. The NFL will not let it happen.
Bullshit to both of you. Yes, they will. To both of you. again, I'm not taking anything away from Bear fans or being a Bear, whatever you want to call it. I'm just saying only if the Bears move out of Chicago itself, that it's more than possible. The league has to give some kind of approval or pull some levers. But if there's money to be made, trust me.
Money rules all. But what are we going to have? A west side, east side, north side, south side? Is that what we're going to have here?
You already have that in baseball, don't you?
We got the north side, south side. What are we going to have? The west side, east side?
The White Sox and Cub
Where's
fans,
the other team going to go? Where's the other team going to go?
Hang on. The only thing White Sox and Cub fans can agree upon, they're all Bear fans. They all are Bear fans. Right. They will line up next to each other to root for the Bulls and to the Blackhawks. They hate each other's teams as far as baseball goes.
Okay.
Some people say, well, I root for Bull teams. You're full of crap. No, you don't.
Okay. We're getting off the beaten path here.
Alan brings this up. Alan brings this up really quick, guys. Alan brings this up right here. 2 teams in Pennsylvania, but only 1 here. That's different. There's 2 major cities in Pennsylvania.
Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
I mean, come on. What the fuck are we doing here? That's not even questionable. Those are 2 major cities in Pennsylvania.
Okay, there's 2 teams in New York. There's 2 teams in Los Angeles. Okay, you can certainly have 2 teams in Chicago, and there were 2 teams in Chicago. You're not old enough to remember. There used to be the
Cardinals.
Yeah, well, you are, Les, because you're Methuselah. But there were 2 teams here in Chicago once upon a time, and it could easily, I'm not saying it's going to happen, I'm saying it easily could happen if the city wants it and the league wants it. Yes, it could.
I know Richard J. Daley, he was the one that said, they can move to Gary or whatever, but they're not going to be the Chicago Bears. He couldn't have stopped them from keeping the name Chicago. Lori Lightfoot cannot stop that. They're going to be the Chicago Bears no matter where they play in this area.
No one's talking about that.
I know that, but the league does not want a second team here. And can they stop another owner from moving in here? No, they can't. They could not stop some of the other. Al Davis moving from Oakland to L.A., then back to Oakland. Now he's dead, and they've moved to Las Vegas and all the rest of that. But then you had a case where the Chargers moved up from there. They would have liked to have had the Chargers stay there. Could they stop it? No. Can they stop a team from coming here? No, they can't.
Wait, who could not stop a team from coming here? Did you say
the NFL? The NFL
cannot stop it.
Cannot.
Okay, you just said a couple of minutes ago that the league could stop it.
The league will try to prevent it from happening. They'll go out, but they will lose.
Okay, I'm going to reiterate. Only if the Bears move out of Chicago itself, that a second team – listen, even if the Bears did move out of Chicago, if there was a second place to even play, it's at least feasible. But who knows? We're way, way, way ahead of ourselves. Mike, I want to bring you back around to the conversation we had before. The Cubs called their game earlier today. That was a crock of shit also. There's no way they –
Thank God.
Well,
Thank God.
Because you didn't want to see another loss. That's why.
I didn't want to see another ass trouncing. Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to see another ass beating on the Cubs side. Yeah.
Is that why they called the game today then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. That's what I'm going with. Another ass beating. Another ass beating. Just put by the wayside. Exactly.
Another ass beating, and the fact that Wilson Contreras called his teammates a bunch of quitters after last night's game. They didn't want to deal with that today.
Get rid of him. Out of here. Get out of here. Put him on a different team. I don't care where he goes. Just put him somewhere. As long as he's not in the Cubs and as long as we get something back for him, I don't care.
Okay. Who else is going to go? Because Les doesn't think anybody's going to go, and I say Kimbrel and Bryant.
All of them. I'm hoping all of them. Javier Baez, Anthony Rizzo, Craig Kimbrel. It doesn't matter who it is. Get rid of them. Chris Bryant, Contreras, Kyle Hendricks, Nico Horner. I don't care. Whoever it is, get rid of them and get something back in return because this team.
You're looking at a 100-loss team in the future then.
Fine. Well, what are we now? We're an 80-loss team. So what's another 20 losses? Get rid of this shit squad and get something back in return because this team isn't cutting it. This team is garbage. All 5 starting pitchers throw a whopping 92 miles an hour. Jake Arrieta is going to be what? DFA'd, right? Is he not DFA'd already?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. It's happening. It's happening. Kyle Hendricks is your best pitcher. He's been awesome. He's at 11-4 now, 3.82 ERA. Ship him off to Boston and get something back in return. Ship him off to the Dodgers, Gavin Lux or something back. Anything back, because this team is garbage.
All right, let me ask you this then. Do you think that management, or I should say ownership, would be happy in getting rid of all these players because it saves them, once again, that 5-letter word, money?
I mean, it all depends. I mean, this team right now is struggling to get wins. A few weeks ago, when it all happened, when they were playing really good ball after that Dodgers series where they had the combined no-hitter and all that other stuff,
and then they lost 11 right after.
It's all flash in the pan. Exactly. Thank you, Les. Then they go on and lose 11 in a row. You knew what this team was going into this year immediately when they shopped off Hugh Darvish for a bag of peanuts.
Right.
This team, Caratini now. Not having Caratini hasn't helped them either.
But again, Mike, Mike, following up your point, you knew right then and there that, again, it was all about money. They saved a ton of money even then.
Right.
How much of it do you think is Grandpa Ricketts, the dad of Tom Ricketts and his siblings? How much you think is the older guy with all the money? How much do you think he is causing all this?
I don't think it's too much. Honestly, I don't think it's old man Ricketts doing everything. This team they need to figure it out. They knew going in after 16, when they progressed into 17, 18, and 19, this team was not hitting the baseball. Plain and simple. And they got to figure this out. And these guys, if they're not cutting it, then you got to get rid of them and get something for them. You lost Schwarber for pretty much nothing.
All right.
Don't do the same thing with Chris Bryant. Don't do the same thing with Anthony Rizzo. Don't do the same thing with Javier Baez and Nico Horner and Wilson Contreras. Do what you have to do to get something back in return to start a quote-unquote retool, quote-unquote rebuild.
Alan Richter says it's 100% Grandpa Ricketts.
Alan Bratcher. Anyway, Mike, do you blame Theo then for not doing this a year or two or maybe even longer than that in the past?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, definitely, for sure. At least a year ago. I mean, you knew what you had going into this year. You knew that these guys aren't hitting the ball. It was 2 years in actual record. It was 2 years in recorded stats that these guys weren't hitting the ball. And what are you still doing them with them on your roster? It blows my mind a little bit. What are you doing? In 2017, yeah, they came back and they were good. They won 95 games, right? 95. 2019 was more of the same. 2018, 2019 was more of the same. Last year, in a bad year, Jason Hayward leads your team in hitting. Jason Hayward, this guy struggles to bat his body weight every single year, and this guy's leading your fucking
outfielder, though. He's their best defender.
Whoop-de-doo. I don't give a flying frog's fat green ass what he does, because every time I see that guy at the plate, he rolls one over to the second baseman. I'm so sick of seeing that bullshit. It's like Mark Grudzielanek or Todd Walker popping out to the second baseman every fucking time they're at the plate.
Well, wait a minute. When they let Grudzielanek go, that's how they let Grudzielanek go in 2004. He was still there, but they hardly used it. That's why they suddenly weren't as good that year. So let's not blame Grudzielanek. If you want to blame anybody else, yeah, you can.
I don't know how
Mark Grudzielanek was really good for the time being.
They gave up Todd Hundley to get him. They got him in the Todd Hundley deal, along with a couple of other players, and it was a great trade.
Wait, what did you call him, Mark Grudzielanek?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you were close. Let's go back
do we have to get our commercial break in here?
No, not yet. We're on a roll. Let's continue on with the Bears. They're going to start training camp in about 2 weeks, Mike. Allen Robinson still doesn't have that quote unquote long-term deal. Les, if you got to break away for a second, Mike and I'll carry it if that's what you need to do.
I'll be right back.
Fair enough. Les has got to take a certain kind of break himself. Anyway, are you surprised that Allen Robinson still doesn't have a long-term deal? Do you think he'll ever have a long-term deal? And especially with Justin Fields being their long-term solution, don't you want to have somebody be a wide receiver with a long-term deal?
Listen, I love Allen Robinson to the max. This guy is unbelievable. He's been – everybody who doesn't think that he's a top-tier wide receiver is out of their mind, because he really is a top-tier wide receiver. I think this year when Justin Fields gets into the mix of everything, once he starts starting and playing in this option one, this first-team offense, I have a feeling that Allen Robinson is going to change his mind. I really do. And he will sign a contract here in Chicago, because Justin Fields is going to be the best quarterback that Allen Robinson has ever played with. He's played with Blake Bortles. He's played with Mike Glennon. He's played with that shit show of Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles. Now he legitimately has a quarterback that's going to make him what Allen Robinson needs to be, what Allen Robinson actually is. I'm really excited for this year.
Okay, so you think it's on Allen Robinson's part that he hasn't signed, or is it on the Bears' part that he hasn't signed?
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly. Allen Robinson, I think he's kind of sitting there saying, prove it to me. Just like every Chicago Bear fan is sitting here on their ass and on their hands. Prove it to me that you guys know what the fuck you're doing, and draft a quarterback. Draft somebody who's going to throw me the rock, plain and simple. And Allen Robinson, I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you sit back and entertain the idea of free agency, or entertain the idea of like, okay, if you guys mess us up, I'm out of here. I mean, I'm all with them. I'm 100% in Allen Robinson's quarter.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Before we get to our walk down memory lane segment and Stump the Grobber, and it'll be Stump the Grobber and Mike today, by the way, All-Star edition.
Oh boy. Okay.
Oh boy. I was just thinking about this. Tampa Bay Hockey Lightning, and Mike, I know you're a little bit of a hockey fan, at least a little. They won.
Hockey nut, yeah.
Okay, then this is perfect.
$18 million over the cap, which is bullshit.
Tampa Bay wins 2 titles, the last 2 during the pandemic. Okay, the Lakers won the pandemic title last year in the bubble. Phoenix or Milwaukee wins it this year. The Dodgers won it last year in Major League Baseball. It remains to be seen who wins it this year. And then, of course, Tampa Bay won it last year in the NFL, and we'll see what happens upcoming. What I'm basically asking is, do you think these titles will be remembered as a little bit cheapened because they came during the 1 or 2 pandemic years? What
yes, yes, they will. They will. No doubt. But right now, Tampa Bay, they're one of the 3 fastest teams in the league. If you remember, David, the year the Blackhawks beat them in 2015, Tampa Bay was a faster team than the Hawks back then, too. The Hawks were just more experienced, and they beat them. As far as, the Tampa Bay Rays, they came close to winning the World Series last year. The Dodgers beat them out. So everybody in the Tampa Bay area, they're pretty thrilled right now the way things are going.
No, I understand that. Listen, Tampa Bay is right now Titletown, USA, of all places. But will these titles, especially last year and maybe a little bit less this year, because there are some fans in attendance now, more than some. Will these titles be cheapened in a lot of people's minds because it happened during the pandemic years last year?
I think it should be. It will be, and it should be. I mean, the Lakers won it last year. This year, they were out of the bubble, and they got knocked out in the first round. Then there's some other things you could talk about, too, but at least you have 2 teams that came into the league the same year, the Bucks and the Suns. They both came in 98, in 78, 79, 88, 89, I'm sorry. I'll get it right originally. But anyhow, they came in the same year, and that was the Bulls' 3rd year. And the Bucks got good quickly because they got Kareem. But right now, it's 110-90 Milwaukee, by the way. They're about to get on the board and get a victory as they're killing Phoenix tonight.
All right, you meant to say 1969. That's what you really meant to say, because that's what
he wasn't Kareem Abdul-Jabbar back then, was he?
It was. I mean, it was
Ferdinand Lewis Alcindor then.
Yeah, it was Alcindor. He went 1, and unless I knows who went number 2. Mike
Neil Walk.
Okay, I was going to ask Mike if he knew, but that was way before his time. Neil Walk was a big, white, stiff, a 7-foot center who couldn't play basketball.
Where did he go to college?
Oh, where did he go?
I'm going to say Duke.
No.
Wrong.
Gosh, Les, I don't remember.
Where every white guy comes from is Duke.
Florida. He was a Florida Gator.
Okay. Whatever. All right, one last thing before we walk down memory lane. Les, I don't think you're an MMA fan. Are you, Mike?
I am.
Okay. What'd you think of Conor McGregor losing and breaking his leg last night?
Well, he was getting his ass beat all the way up until the point he broke his leg.
That is correct.
But look, I still like the boisterousness. I still like him being a loudmouth. I still like him. He makes the UFC a little bit, because nobody else does that.
He's a piece of crap.
Well, I mean, I like him. He doesn't bother me much, but he makes it exciting. All right, he brings people in. A lot of people like Conor McGregor, and it's sad because last night we've seen this happen to Anderson Silva. We've seen this happen to other fighters in the UFC where they've had like almost a compound fracture like Conor McGregor endured last night. And these guys don't come around too much.
I'm a poet and I know it. McGregor is pure manure. This is why I love having Les on the podcast, because you can unleash him. He's pure manure.
He's pure. That's going on Twitter. Twitter.
It's funny because Alan is a part of 1252 also, and he just said, what do you say again? He was quoting the winner of last night's match. Karma is a mirror or something. There he is. Karma is a mirror, which is what the winning guy last night said. Fucking garbage. What I do like is when guys who have big mouths, when they get their ass beat. That's what I like about Conor McGregor right now. Sometimes he shoots off his mouth. You got to remember, guys, he's lost 3 of his last 4 matches in MMA. And if you throw in the Mayweather thing, he's lost 4 of his last 5 professional fights.
Yeah, and he kept saying
one thing I want to say.
Mayweather too, and he got he got clobbered in that too.
Go ahead, Mike.
I just want to say, what's up with all the UFC fighters and all their different colored hair?
I don't know. It's
last
a new
night
trend.
I watched a 24-year-old with gray hair and another guy with lime green hair beat the shit out of each other for 4 rounds. The one dude with the green hair got punched in the face a bunch of times. The guy with the green hair didn't do nothing. He just sit there and dribbled. He literally dribbled and then
probably had mold.
He literally dribbled and then back kicked a guy in the face. Like, what's up with all the hairstyles in the UFC? Like, what is that thing? Are they trying to be like the new Dennis Rodman? Is that what's going on?
I can't answer that, but listen, that means that you must have paid for it last night if you knew that, right?
No, I cheat. I rob all that shit off the internet.
Wait, all right, tell us how you cheat. How do you do it? This is a good one.
I'm not going to give away I'm not going to give it away. I'm not going to give it away because I still like the website. But yeah, there's a website that I go to where I get all that stuff streamed out, and it's nice. It's a good website.
So it works, is what you're saying.
It does work. I watched all the fights all the way until the time I fell asleep on the couch with a beer on my chest. Yeah. I was watching it. Yeah.
Here's Jeff Dandyman asking about Novak Djokovic. Yeah, he's pretty amazing. He won his 20th Wimbledon, or not 20th major title by winning Wimbledon again today, and he ties Federer and Nadal.
Winning the first set and dropping the next 2.
No, he actually lost the first set and won the next 3.
Oh, okay. My bad. I was reading the scorecard wrong. My bad.
Yeah. He lost the first set.
I don't understand tennis or soccer. How about Italy?
Italy wins on penalty kicks over England, so the Italians win it, and England gets, which usually has a very boring style anyway. They usually try to play for a scoreless tie or a 1-1. It was a 1-1 tie, and then Italy ended up winning on penalty kicks. Good for them.
Yeah, I have no comment.
And did you? Yeah, no, hold on, time out. I was sitting there, I was watching the game, and when Italy tied it at 1-1, it may have been the most exciting 10 seconds of any sport I've ever watched in my entire life.
Why?
I'm not even joking. I swear to God. That 10 seconds, the goalie saved one, it came back out to a guy, the guy kicked it again, hit the crossbar, and then kicked it in the net. It was unbelievable. And everybody's like, I don't even know what's going on. Where's all these extra minutes coming from? What the hell's going on? And Italy 1-1. And then penalty kicks at the end of the game. Listen, I don't understand soccer for a bit. I'd have to revert to our friend David, unless our
Fred.
guy Fred Hubner.
Yeah,
he knows soccer.
I broadcast
like
soccer in my life also, and I've done indoor and outdoor soccer both, as David knows. And
I'm telling you,
outdoor soccer is a lot of fun, but unfortunately, the owners, once Lee Stern bailed out and other owners of different teams bailed out, and I know I did the Chicago Horizons one time. They bailed out, and they still owe me a lot of money today, as do the late owners of the Chicago Hustle. But that's another story for another day.
Yeah, we could do a podcast with all the people who owe less money from all his play-by-play over the years.
Well, at least
telling you,
the 3 years I did Chicago Sky games, they paid, and I got paid every penny I had coming to me.
Yeah, listen.
And the Chicago Rush, I got every bit of money from them as well.
One of these days, Les is going to write a book, and I will definitely look for a free copy, but if I have to, I'll pay for it too. It'll be interesting because Les has got a lot of interesting stuff that he's done over all these years. No ifs, ands, or buts.
If anybody wants to see the list of people I've worked for and all, do the Chicago Power owe you money? No, I never saw Grover. I never saw the Chicago Power play a game in person. Bottom line is, down the road, if anybody wants to see, go to my Facebook. It's my name, Les Grobstein. On the homepage, there's a list of everybody that I've worked for.
All right, before we get to Stump the Grobber, one real quick, and if you guys want to throw in one yourself, walk down memory lane segment, and it came up on a YouTube video the other day, so it just reminded me. This was when Glenn Allen Hill hit that home run that landed on the roof of the building over the left field fence.
502 feet.
Well, actually, they claimed it was 490, but, it was probably longer than that, to be honest.
It was over 500 feet.
I think it was also. Yeah. The building itself said 460, and that was at the bottom of the building. It went up over the roof. And the story not only was that he hit the home run, this is back in the year 2000. I think I was working at AM 1000 back then, and they said, go interview, whoever caught the ball on the roof. Well, I did. It was only like the third or fourth inning. So I went across the street, and this is something I never admitted to it until right now. I had a beer while I was up there. Why not? They offered it, and I had one of those beers up there on top of the roof. But, yeah, the home run that Glenn Allen Hill hit, and I do remember asking him after the game, because they always say if you hit one that good, and it's the same as golf, Mike, and you know this, if you hit one that good, you don't even feel it. And that's exactly what he said. Right. I didn't feel it at all. And it was one of the longest home runs that you'll ever hope to see.
That's the only one that I ever saw go on top of the roof.
Jeff Dandyman's asking, who was the pitcher when Sammy was caught with a cork bat? It was batting practice. It could have been the pitching coach.
No way. He's talking about when he got caught with the cork bat against Tampa Bay.
Oh, okay.
And the bat shattered, and I do know that who the pitcher was. I can't remember who, but it was a Tampa Bay Rays pitcher.
All right, well, it is a good trivia question. But with that in mind, let's do Stump the Grobber. I guess we don't.
What was that?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Andrew. Go ahead.
What was that?
That doesn't really make sense.
What?
Live and let live.
I'm not familiar with that expression.
It's a James Bond.
Doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Of course, I'm alive.
Queens on casino night. I am going to drop a deuce on everybody.
I want to say for the record, I did not kill anyone. Stanley was attacked by his own heart.
I know where this is going.
Do you? Okay. It's now time for Stump the Grobber on the Grobstein and Schuster Express.
And yes, it is time for Stump the Grobber All-Star Edition. And not only, Mike just buzzed out because I wanted him to try and answer some of these questions also. But until Mike comes back, Les, I'll throw them at you. All right, here we go. Who was the last Cub to hit a home run in the All-Star game?
Aramis Ramirez. No. It was Chris Bryant. He hit it off of a White Sox pitcher. It was Chris Bryant leading off the game.
Not the answer.
Who was it?
Wilson Contreras.
He hit one, huh?
Yeah, he hit one after. Brian did hit one off Chris Sale. You're right about that.
Yeah.
And I think it was early in the game, but Wilson Contreras is the answer to the question. And by the way, Jeremy Gonzalez was the pitcher for Sosa.
Former Cub.
That's Jeff Dandyman answering that question. All right. Is Mike back? All right. Mike is back. All right. Here we go, guys. 2 White Sox players have hit home runs in the All-Star game. Who are the 2 players?
Well, one was Maglio Ordonez.
That is correct. That's the harder one.
And he hit it off John Lieber.
Mike, you got the other one?
Paul Konerko.
Nope.
Oh.
And it wasn't Frank Thomas either.
Yes, it was Frank Thomas.
He did hit one in there?
Yes, Frank Thomas and Maglio Ordonez, the only 2 White Sox players to hit home runs in the All-Star game.
I remember the one that was hit by Mags, and he hit it off of John Lieber in Atlanta.
Okay. All right. What White Sox pitcher has the record for most strikeouts by a Sox pitcher in All-Star competition?
Steve Stone.
No.
Ed Farmer?
No. This again, and I will tell you, that's more than one appearance in the game.
Well, Farmer only pitched 1 inning, by the way. That was in L.A. in 1980, and he was terrific.
Okay, so if he only pitched 1 inning, why would you think that he has the most strikeouts by a White Sox pitcher in All-Star competition?
I was going off the cuff.
In an inning, you could have infinity amount of strikeouts.
Less. I didn't say an inning.
And there hasn't been that many White Sox starting pitcher All-Stars.
All right, who was the other one?
Well, it's not the other one. It's the only one.
Chris Sale?
No, it's Billy Pierce. Billy Pierce in 4 All-Star games struck out a total of 12.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Next one. Who is either Cubs or White Sox between the 2 teams? Who's the youngest either Cub or White Sox player to make the All-Star team?
The youngest, boy. Got me on that one.
I will tell you he was 21 years old.
Still have me on that one.
Okay, I will tell you that
Kerry Wood.
No, that's a good guess, though. I will tell you that this player, he had a brother who also played in the major leagues.
I have no idea.
You will, and I told you.
Go ahead.
I will tell you that he had part of his thumb blown off in a
Carlos Lee.
Carlos Lee is correct, 21 years old.
1972. That was 1972.
Okay. All right. Here's a good one. Who's the only Cub or White Sox player to be named the MVP in the All-Star game?
Well, Bill Madlock was named MVP along with John Matlack in 1975 in Milwaukee.
That is correct. It is Madlock who was the co-MVP with Matlock. Say that 10 times quickly. Matlock. I can't even do it once.
I would not have gotten that. Les?
And by the way, who did Madlock get the winning base hit off of in that game? And the pitcher that he got the hit off of was not the losing pitcher, but he got a base hit off.
The TV show Matlock.
Yeah, no. It was Andy Griffith.
It was Goose Gossage.
Okay. All right, Les. I don't think Mike will know this one, but here we go, Les. First of all, where was the first All-Star game played?
Comiskey Park.
That is correct. What year was it?
33.
I knew that.
That is also correct.
I knew both of those. Thanks, Les.
Who was the architect for the All-Star?
Arch Ward.
That is correct, Les. Very good. Very good. Who was Arch Ward, Les? Tell everybody.
It's with the Chicago Tribune.
He was. That's absolutely correct. And what else was he the architect of?
The Tribune is also of the College All-Star game.
Very good, Les. You aced that question top to bottom. Very good, Les.
I'll give you an answer. Who was the last press box PA announcer for the College All-Star game?
You were.
Yes, I was. 1976. Steelers and All-Stars. And the game was halted in the third quarter because of deluge.
Driving rain. I remember that.
And it got so it was coming down in sheets. I finally took the microphone and put it down. At first, I said, gentlemen, but we had to say gentlemen. We're not allowed to say women at that point. But I said, gentlemen, if you can see the field, you're doing better than us. And I put the mic down.
The only time where it rained ever harder was when they it was halftime. Butkus's number. Do you remember that, Les?
Oh yeah, that was Halloween in '74.
Yeah. It was a Monday night game, and it was raining sideways.
That was a game that actually made a name for Brett Favre.
And what were you saying about Aaron Rodgers before?
I was saying Brett Favre was the guy, not Aaron Rodgers.
No, I know, but what were you saying about Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers is basically hinted that he has not said, but it looks like he is going to report to camp. I've been saying all along I thought he would play, and he is going to play, and he's going to be a punter.
There's really nowhere else for him to go if they're not going to trade him, and I don't think he's going to retire. Not coming off an MVP season, not with a chance to make a ton more money. So
I've been saying that too.
Where else would he go?
Nowhere.
I think we're keeping Mike up past his bedtime.
No, you're good. I had to cough.
The show is about done for the sleep.
It was a bad one. That was a bad one.
Okay. All right. Anything else you guys want to add before we get out of here?
No, I got one for the both of you. Hold on. I got one for the both of you now.
Go ahead.
On July 11th, 1967, Fergie Jenkins struck out 6 during a 3-inning stint in the MLB Allstar game. Can you name any of the stars that he struck out?
Mickey Mantle was one of them.
It is.
And I also will tell you he gave up a home run in that game. Who did he give up a home run to? It was actually it wasn't in that game. It was in 1971. He gave up a home run in Detroit to another Hall of Famer. Who was it?
I don't know.
Harmon Killebrew.
You know what? Harmon Killebrew also took him deep the year prior, the year that I'm talking about here in 76 in 67. The people that he struck out during that game are Harmon Killebrew, Tony Conigliaro, Mickey Mantle, Jim Fregosi, Rod Carew, and Tony Oliva.
There's a bunch of Hall of Famers in that list right there.
Yep.
I'll give you a final one here from me. 1971, when Fergie did give up the home run to Harmon Killebrew. Who were the other 5 future Hall of Famers that had home runs in that All-Star game in 1971?
I'd be guessing all night. Go ahead, guys. I don't know.
Reggie Jackson, who hit one off the light tower on the roof there.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Frank Robinson hit one. I mentioned Killebrew. From the National League, it was Roberto Clemente, it was Hammer and Hank Aaron, and Johnny Bench.
Very good.
That was the second of 31 straight games that I was at.
That was a select list. All right. So one last thing from me. I was looking this up today. The 65 World Series, that was the Dodgers. They were just dominant during the mid-'60s, of course. And they faced the Twins. The series went 7 games. Koufax didn't pitch game 1 because of the Jewish holiday. I think Drysdale pitched that game.
Yom Kippur, right.
Koufax came back in game 2, and he didn't really have that good of a game. I think they lost 6-1. But he came back in game 5. He shut them out. And then game 7, just 2 days later, he shut them out again. So
complete game.
Both complete game shutouts. Game 5, Game 7. He was named the series MVP, and he was the most dominant. I don't know, along with Bob Gibson. Those are the 2 most dominant pitchers that I've ever seen.
They still have home plate from Metropolitan Stadium at the Mall of America. There, they have it, and I have a picture of that on my website. Who struck out for the last out against Koufax in the '65 World Series at that place?
Zoilo Versailles. I don't know.
No, he was the MVP of the American League that year. That was a good choice there, David, but the answer was Bob Allison.
Well, Bobby Allison was a good hitter, too. Listen, the Twins were loaded. The Twins had a lot of talent.
Cott was a losing pitcher in that 7th game.
And now, speaking of most dominant pitchers, Jake Arrieta, not the year they won it in 16, but in 15 when he won the Cy Young. That's where I'm going with this, by the way, Mike. In 15, when he won the Cy Young, he was, especially in the second half of the season, he had one of the most dominant second halves of all time.
He was unhittable.
He was unhittable. Why do you suppose he has gone so backwards? Is he not on something? Is it he's age?
Yeah, just getting older.
Okay, not doctoring the ball potentially or anything else?
I doubt it. I don't know for sure, but my guess is Father Time is undefeated.
No, that's true.
Time is catching up to him.
What do you think they do with him, Mike?
I mean, my opinion, I would DFA him. I mean, at this point right now, that's all you really can do. Nobody's going to want him. Nobody wants that high ERA. I mean, it keeps on ballooning every time he goes and takes the mound. But no, I mean, he had, honestly, the best pitching performance that I've ever seen in my lifetime over 2015, 2016, and 2017. He was unhittable. He was unbelievable. And I appreciate what he did for us, but it's time to kick rocks.
I think they're going to give him at least one more start after this All-Star break and see what happens. If it doesn't work, he'll get DFA'd.
I would agree with Les. I think they will not unceremoniously dump him right now without giving him at least one more outing to see, especially, I mean, you knew he was going on the injured list. You knew that was going to happen. You knew that.
He's not even injured.
Right.
Of course he's not.
He's as injured just like there was a weather forecast problem this afternoon. Bullshit.
I got plenty of rain down here.
Oh, it did rain down there? Because it hardly rained where I am at all.
They called off the game at Wrigley because of weather, and that was done the same reasons the White Sox, as we talked earlier, canceled the game in 98. Because there was a Bulls game that night. They didn't want to have that game played that evening head-to-head with the Bulls.
That's true. All right, guys, any last thoughts before we get out of here?
Talk to you next week.
All right, Les, you take care of yourself.
You guys be good. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.